On the white tablecloth-covered table stood a pot of aromatic soup, a bowl full of crimson borscht, and a plate of juicy cutlets. 3 salads, mimosa, winter, and vinaigrette, were scattered in colorful bowls. There was also some bread, a dish of pickled vegetables, and non-alcoholic cherry liquor. A well-set table had always been Eve's pride. 9 years ago, she had no doubt that Leo chose her because of her ability to cook deliciously, along with other talents expected of a good wife. But in the last 6 months, Eve didn't recognize her husband. He started staying late at work, criticizing her more harshly, and refused all attempts to have heart-to-heart conversations. Sometimes even scornfully. All Eve could do was close her eyes and cover her head with her hands in fear, much like a rabbit instinctively hides from a predator. Even though the true predator, her father, remained distant in the hazy mist of forgotten childhood, the habit lingered. After 30 years, a woman starts to spoil. Leo once expressed in a conversation with friends, "Impossible, Martin." The foreman at the factory where Leo worked smiled. "So, according to you, should husbands replace their wives like cars with new models?" Leo replied, "What's wrong with that? If a woman is wise, she should stay at home as expected, not say too much, and understand that a man has needs. If she expresses dissatisfaction, she should be kicked to the curb. We men can have affairs with women until we're 100. It's nature's way." "You're thinking wrong," Martin, who had noticed Leo's peculiar worldview before, said. "Our families, parents, live together in love and harmony for their entire lives. Do you think people around the world have been fools for generations? Are you the only smart one? What did I say wrong?" Leo shrugged. "I don't interfere with them. I live as I decided." "Okay, conversation over. It's time to work." 6 months ago, Eve celebrated her 30th birthday. However, Leo ordered her not to buy a cake, claiming the car broke down and there was no money until the next paycheck. Eve had been saving money for autumn boots and decided to use it. She bought a rich chocolate cake filled with apricot jam called Prague, 2 candles shaped like digits, and made a wish with closed eyes to be happy. Leo didn't give her any gifts for that occasion. No card, no box of chocolates. When she invited him to have tea and cake, he said, "You know I hate sweets. Are you deliberately trying to annoy me?" Then he suddenly grabbed her wrist, squeezed it, and looked into her face attentively. "Congratulations on reaching the threshold of 30 years. It's a turning point for a woman." Eve didn't ask what kind of threshold it was. It was better not to disturb Leo in such a mood. Otherwise, he might start an argument and wouldn't remember how it began. If she reminded him, he would likely deny ever saying such things. On the day when he served a late dinner of borscht and 3 salads at 9 p.m., her husband was supposed to return from a 24-hour shift due to an unexpected breakdown of newly installed equipment at the factory. A real storm raged outside with thunder and lightning. At such rates, a tornado could have formed. Eve glanced at the clock. 8:50, she sighed and sat down on a chair. Then she looked at the clock again. 9, her husband was late, she thought. But suddenly, the doorbell rang loudly. Eve frowned, remembering that she asked her husband not to choose that annoying melody for the doorbell. Opening the door, she saw her husband and embraced him eagerly. "Welcome home. Dinner is cold. You wash your hands, and I'll heat it up." "I've already eaten," Leo said strangely, with a smile. Monica ordered sushi. Eve was bewildered. Monica was her younger cousin. Last year, her parents sent her from the village to the city for university studies. Although they were relatives, they didn't get along. Eve considered Monica too assertive and cynical. Perhaps she could get into trouble with her passion for luxurious dresses and nightclubs. Take, for example, her inclination to take out microloans with exorbitant interest rates, despite just starting a job as a waitress. Would a sensible person do that? And would a decent girl openly talk about finding an older man to travel with and wear diamonds? Monica visited Eve on International Women's Day and boasted that she had already found someone for herself. For now, he had only rented her an apartment in the residential area, but he promised more. Eve scolded her sister for speaking so openly in a decent house, and even Leo supported her. Monica, casting strange glances at the couple, hurried to leave. "Monica fed me," Leo said, taking off his boots and jacket, heading to the kitchen. "Do you think a man needs food like a dog to stay home, Leo? I don't understand. Did something happen? Have a look in the mirror at yourself." He was clearly getting agitated, nostrils trembling with reddish spots on his face. Eve examined herself. "What's wrong with me? The home dress is clean, pressed, hair neatly tied, and the slippers on my feet are soft and cute like little cat faces. Do you find all this interesting?" Leo approached her closely, his sour breath hitting her. "I haven't wanted you for a long time, like a cleaning rag. What can you offer a man, Leo? What are you saying? What did I do wrong?" The noise in her head and the tears welling up blurred her vision. Eve realized he was right about something. Yes, she gained a couple of kilograms. The doctor said it might be due to a female health issue. They had been struggling to conceive a child. She never aimed to wear bright makeup or style her hair dramatically. She simply didn't feel the need for it. Moreover, Leo himself said he liked her appearance. He said she was pure, fresh, not like those painted dolls. He mentioned that she, having recently arrived from the village to the city, was special, not materialistic, well-mannered, and proper. He always praised her as the perfect wife. So how is this possible now? That's right, Leo summed up harshly. You've done nothing to keep the family together. Your sister is a fire in bed. Maybe you should learn something from her. Saying this, Leo walked past, pushing his wife aside with his shoulder. He dressed in the corridor and then slammed the door. Eve sank heavily into a chair, clasped her hands together, and stared at the wall. In the kitchen, they had recently adorned the walls with lemon-patterned wallpaper, capturing all her attention. How many petals on each flower? When did her husband start cheating, she thought. Such an action wouldn't go unnoticed. Wasn't he ashamed at all? She thought he might have been close to someone on the bus during Leo's crowded rush-hour commute, and that's why his clothes smelled of women's perfume. He'll come back. Yes, of course, he'll come back. They have so much binding them together. She never thought about how important appearance was for Leo. Do people love for beauty? They love for the soul, for loyalty, care, kindness, and warmth that can ward off any trouble and shelter from misfortune. A tight ball seemed to be in her throat, and her nose felt stuffy as if from a cold. Eve swayed back and forth quietly. He doesn't love, he cheated. Why? But he'll come back, right? How can he be without her and she without him? Or is this the end? No, it can't be. It shouldn't have happened like this. If a psychologist were with Eve right now, he might say that her emotional palate is recognized as denial, a natural stage of processing a heavy life event, and this was just the beginning. At some point, Eve was surprised. What was that strange sound? Is someone mistreating a dog among the neighbors? Then she realized she was crying softly, clenching her teeth, inhaling the burning air into her throat, and she imagined that her heart would stop right now because she had no human strength to endure all this. How much time has passed? It was dark outside, hard to tell. But now, Eve got up, went to the bathroom, splashed her face with cold water for a long time, rubbed it until her palms hurt. She walked into their shared marital bedroom, avoiding looking at the bed. She remembered once going to the village for a week. Her parents died one after another at that time, succumbing to incurable diseases. She left to put things in order. During that time, her sister asked to stay at their house, claiming that the dorm was being treated for cockroaches, and she was afraid of an allergic reaction. Now, what were they doing together with Leo? Eve felt nauseous and looked away. She opened the wardrobe doors to get an old travel bag she brought to the city. She put all her things in it. There were a few, and what didn't fit into the bag, she placed in a sturdy, large supermarket bag. She took what was still in the bathroom, shampoo, and other little things. Eve went to the kitchen and took her favorite mug with a pug and the inscription, "Silly, everything will be okay." She emptied the contents of the salad plate into the trash bin. The plate was antique from the 50s. Her grandmother stood in line for this plate in Manhattan. She washed the plate. Now she went to the living room. Behind the sailboat and the bottle on the shelf, there is a small box. Her mother gave it to her for graduation. There, Eve kept jade necklaces she never liked because Leo once said they made her look like a rich lady. And Eve also kept her savings there. Eva graduated from the Philological University. She had envisioned becoming an editor in a publishing house, following in the footsteps of her grandfather. However, she ended up staying at home. Leo was earning well, and he didn't want his wife to neglect their home for the sake of a career. But money was still tight. Actually, it wasn't about the money. Eva felt embarrassed to ask her husband for extra money for her feminine purchases. So she took on freelance work from home. A former classmate, Odin Clark, occasionally sent her articles from a travel portal for editing. Eva decided to calculate how much money she had saved. Not much, but enough for tickets to the village. Let the empty house there await her. Where else could she go? The bags were heavy, but Eva firmly grasped them and walked out into the courtyard. "Oh, hi," Dennis peeked out from the neighboring apartment, known throughout the building as a disturber of peace, believing in UFOs and a bit in the flat earth theory. Some even said Dennis was a bit crazy, but since he didn't harm anyone, people didn't take him seriously. "Good evening," Eva politely replied, pondering with keys in hand. Did Leo take his keys? He said he lost them and ordered new ones. Wants to get home. Where are you heading in the middle of the night? Dennis frowned. Just need to go somewhere. Can you pass these to my husband? She handed the keys to her neighbor. My husband, please. All right, Dennis took the keys. Where are you going? Don't walk at night. Heard about what happens? No, Eva shook her head, already standing by the elevator. The moon is full tonight, and British scientists have proven that werewolves are known in all cultures and all times, but they're being hidden. They walk at night and collect tribute from people. I'll be careful. She waved to Dennis, entered the elevator, and went down. Stopping at the entrance, Eva reached into her purse for her phone to call a taxi to the station. The request was accepted, and she was told to wait for about 20 minutes. The girl sat on a bench, putting her hands in the pockets of her coat to keep them from freezing. So this was the end for her. Why weren't the tears coming? Or had they already run out? I don't get it. What are you doing here? Her husband's voice echoed overhead. Leo stood nearby, and in the dim light that scattered from the lantern above the entrance, his face seemed more unnatural, alien, distorted, and evil. Eva got up and grabbed her things. I'm leaving. Don't understand, he repeated. Her heart tightened anxiously. Was he drunk? She had seen him in such a state in the past 6 months while they still lived together, and she knew that in this condition, it would be better for him to go to sleep as soon as possible, or else he would find fault with everything. And what happens now? I'm leaving. You chose someone else. It's normal that I'm leaving you. We're getting a divorce. We won't divide anything. I don't want anything from you, Eva tried to speak calmly, not revealing any disgust or fear. You're my wife, Leo suddenly shouted, tightly and painfully grabbing her shoulder, pulling her towards him. Go home. We'll talk. Why are you offended? You should be happy, Eva bit her lip and turned away. Where's the taxi? There's simply no time to wait for it. An empty street. Who will protect her? And then her gaze caught a light movement in one of the cars parked on the side. I hate you, she exclaimed, and with all her might, she stomped on her husband's foot with her boot, pushed him away. In the process, she almost dropped all the bags, only the bag remained in her hands. Leo screamed, stepped back, and being not sober, lost his balance and fell into a large flower basket, mentally apologizing to Mrs. Cox, their neighbor and the creator of annual flower plantings. Eva rushed towards the car, knocking on the driver's window. "Help, please." The window went down. There were 3 people in the car, 2 in the front and 1 in the back. They looked very young, stern, and not the type you'd want to meet at night in everyday life. But now all her hopes were on them. "What do you need?" the driver asked. "Please, I need to leave urgently," Eva nervously swallowed. "A man is chasing me. Help me, take me to the station. I called a taxi, but I can't wait." The husband had already gotten up and, swearing incoherently, was approaching her. "Wow," the guy next to the driver shook his head, exchanged glances with the driver. "Well, get in." The driver turned around. "Carl, make room." Thank you, Eva, as agile as an antelope fleeing from a lion, swung the door open, tossed her travel bag forward, and quickly climbed in, slamming the door shut. "Hurry, please," she exclaimed, seeing her husband just a step away from the car. "Don't worry, he won't catch you," the driver chuckled. "No one has escaped from us or chased us before." The black luxury car sharply reversed and made a swift turn, narrowly avoiding Leo, who was shouting something in protest. The driver skillfully maneuvered onto the road, immediately reaching the permitted speed limit. "Thank you, you saved me," sighed Eva, leaning back into the seat. Several minutes passed in silence inside the car. Eva gazed at the passing city landscape, pondering what the future held for her. "Aren't you afraid?" a quiet, insinuating voice from the passenger seat next to her interrupted her thoughts. "Sitting with strangers like this at night? What?" Eva didn't immediately grasp the question. "I mean, it's not safe. Throughout history, sitting with strangers has never been safe." Not knowing who they are, the guy sitting next to her said, locking eyes with the young woman. His eyes were yellow, not human eyes, but eyes that faintly glowed. "Who are you?" Eva asked in fear. "Does it matter?" The person sitting in the front passenger seat intercepted her question, smiling and turning around. "You're very brave sitting with 3 strangers like this. What if we are bad guys?" Eva began to shake because the person talking had sharp teeth and yellow eyes too. "Who are you?" "Please stop the car," Eva pleaded. The guy next to her snickered, reached over the back seat, and embraced Eva's shoulders. "Don't worry, we don't bite," he joked. "Hey, idiots, can't you see she's about to faint?" The driver shook his head, annoyed. "You guys have brains, this is a special case. She's not some young lady leaving a nightclub, she's a woman escaping from her husband. Didn't you notice he was drunk?" "Ah, right," nodded the yellow-eyed guy next to her and withdrew his hand. "Sorry, lady," apologized the one with sharp teeth, "we didn't mean to scare you." "Who are you?" "Please let me go," a confused and frightened Eva asked. "Aren't you afraid to hitchhike?" The driver chuckled. "You could end up with psychos." "No, that won't do. I apologize for my brothers, they got carried away with the full moon." "Why the full moon?" Eva moved, trying to keep as far away as possible from the guy next to her. "Because," the yellow-eyed guy said, reaching into his pocket. Eva prepared to scream, but the guy took out a small box, grabbed something from it, and inserted it into his eyes. "You're definitely going to catch an infection someday," scolded the guy in the front passenger seat. "No, I have a strong immune system," replied the guy, putting the box away. Then he looked at Eva again, and now his eyes were completely ordinary contact lenses. "Sorry if I scared you," he said. "It just takes a moment to switch back to normal. I apologize for my brother's behavior, just didn't get out of character right away." "Huh, an actor?" The driver laughed. "Larry, cut it out," Carl replied. "What's going on? Will you let me go?" Eva asked, bewildered and almost crying. The car stopped at the traffic light. Eva gently pulled the door handle. "Firstly, stop that. You're going to break it," Larry said sternly. "Secondly, just calm down. You're in good hands. I can promise you have nothing to fear with us." Who believes words these days? Eva replied, "You're right, but you can trust ours. Now, tell us, did you run away from your husband? I believe there was a reason. But where do you plan to go next? Larry asked. Why do you believe me? Eva questioned. It seemed crucial to her to get an answer because she had just shared her plans to go to the village, pouring out her emotions and admitting that she had wasted the best years of her life with her husband, always staying at home. We believe you because we've seen your husband a couple of times when we were in your neighborhood for our own business. He's quite an interesting character, Larry remarked. By the way, I'm Michael, the guy from the front passenger seat introduced himself. So, have you decided to settle in an abandoned house? What's your plan for the future? How will you live? Or are you going to find a job? Do you have a good education? Can't someone in the city take you in? Larry bombarded her with questions. Eva was about to ask how these strange and intimidating men had crossed paths with her husband, but she decided against it. Something told her she wouldn't like the answer. There are a few people I call friends, but when Leo finds me, he knows how to be very convincing with my friends. They'll believe he wants to save our family, they'll pressure me to forgive and return to him. I won't be able to start a new life like this, Eva explained, on the verge of tears. There's no need to go far for an example of your husband's bad behavior. Carl, who had been silent until then, joined the conversation. He rummaged somewhere below and pulled out a bottle of orange-flavored soda and a pack of paper napkins, handing them to Eva. Take these. So, last week, we were passing by and saw your husband abusing a dog in your yards. There was a stray dog, small, shaggy, and vaccinated, but no one wanted her as a pet. She disappeared a few days ago. People were worried, asking everyone, but she seemed to vanish. She barked at your husband, and he tried to kick her, then destroyed her little house, Carl added. Could Leo be capable of such actions after his betrayal? Eva couldn't defend her husband's decency. The dog disappeared, she cautiously said. She vanished just recently. It's our job, Carl smirked. You don't need her. What? Everyone in our yard loved her, then why did she live without care through winter, autumn, and the whole year if everyone loved her so much? Carl questioned. People have different circumstances, Eva hesitated. When something is genuinely needed, circumstances can wait, Larry noted. What have you done to her? Eva became anxious again. The predictable reaction and stereotypes. Do we seem like psychos to you? Carl chuckled. Yes, we took her. We drove her to a wolf. She lives with him like a queen, eats a special diet and all that. Who is this Ludi? Eva completely stopped understanding. Our owner, mentor, teacher, and protector, Michael replied with such pompous importance that it almost became amusing. And by the way, he has a name, Bruno, but we often refer to him by his nickname. We're used to it, okay? Let's get back to the main topic, Larry interrupted and waved his hand ahead. The bus station building came into view. Eva could almost sense the impatience in her legs. Soon, she thought, I would thank these strange fellow travelers and bid them farewell forever. What if I suggest changing your plans and staying in the city? Not running around looking for housing, but settling in a good place. Ludi is handling things, expanding his business. He needs people, Larry proposed. What are you talking about? I'm just a philologist, and I don't know who your Ludi is. Excuse me, but I've already made up my mind. Thank you for the ride, Eva replied. Why resist such a good offer? We see you're a decent, intelligent woman. Nowadays they're not found on every corner. Of course, you don't know the wolf yet, Michael smirked, but when you get to know him, you'll understand. He's a golden man, a businessman, but with human values. He doesn't throw words to the wind, doesn't mistreat workers, helps people. Sure, he demands a lot from people if they don't want to work or if they've done something dishonest, but he's a decent guy. Of course, you won't hear about him in magazines and shows. He doesn't like publicity. He's a serious man. If he talks to you, I think he can explain things better than we can, Carl added. I'm not planning to talk to anyone, Eva said, trying to inject her voice with fearless determination. I think your owner, as you call him, wouldn't like it if you frightened a woman and took her somewhere against her will, right? She challenged. That's correct, Carl nodded. Then you're dropping me off at the station now, and we part ways. Agreed? The three guys remained silent for a while. Okay, as you wish. Our job is to offer. Maybe if it's your destiny, you'll meet him like we did once, Larry confidently summed up. The car pulled into the parking lot. Eva hurriedly got out. The air was fresh, brisk, and she felt free. Thanks for the ride, she turned to the car. You're welcome, the driver grinned, and with the nimbleness known to him, reversed, rolled out of the parking lot, and disappeared around the corner. Eva entered the bus station building and headed to the ticket counter. It turned out the next bus to Mansfield was only in 6 hours, at 8 a.m. After reaching the waiting area, Eva sat on a hard metal chair. She placed her bag on the adjacent empty seat, mentally scolding herself for leaving things by the entrance. She wished she had been bolder. Winter boots, old but warm, cosmetics, and much more were lost. Only a plate for salad was salvaged, placed in the bag as the most valuable item. So, all that was left was to wait until morning and then go to the village. However, despite the overwhelming emotions and the thirst to leave to the ends of the earth, Eva still thought that there was a grain of truth in how these strange guys persuaded her not to go to the village. What would she do there? Let's say she finds a job, perhaps at the post office, and then what? The house is in such a condition that the entire salary for a year will go to repair it, and it still won't be enough. Sighing, Eva took out her notebook from her belongings and began going through contacts. Whom could she call safely so that the next day her husband wouldn't show up to take her home? Over the years of married life, she practically had no personal friends left, only mutual ones, those who were initially among Leo's acquaintances. Eva was almost desperate, but then she found the phone number of an old friend. True, they had seen each other very little since university, only talking on holidays, but perhaps luck would be on her side. Olivia, hi, it's Eva. I probably woke you up, sorry. Please forgive me, I just have no one else to turn to right now, Eva told her. Olivia listened attentively, then fell silent. Eva thought she would hear a polite refusal, generously seasoned with wishes of good luck, but unexpectedly Olivia said she was waiting for her. She just asked not to take any more risks and not to ride with the first people Eva mentioned in her story. Only official taxis, or even better, the first public transport. After all, a single woman at night in a taxi could be frightening. Eva agreed. Today's adventures were more than enough. Olivia dictated the address. It turned out they lived with her husband and little son in a 3-room mortgage apartment, so providing her friend with a place to stay was easily achievable. As soon as the first bus of the route appeared, Eva left the bus station building. Her friend lived almost in the city center, in a brand new residential complex. She greeted Eva from the threshold, hugging her and expressing sympathy. That husband, the scoundrel, how dare he, Olivia said, trying not to make too much noise. Her son was still asleep. They went to the kitchen, where Olivia's husband Reggie appeared, looking disheveled. Morning is never kind, Reggie replied to Eva's timid hello, for which Olivia playfully gave him a light slap on the back of his head. You should get ready for work, lazybones. I'm really sorry to inconvenience you, Eva said, seated by Olivia at the table, which was promptly filled with a large bowl of hot pancakes, tea, and cheese sandwiches. Dear, you eat. It's not good to be sad on an empty stomach, Olivia nodded, while having breakfast with the whole family and discussing the most important things with the guests. They told Eva that she could live with them as long as needed until she gets back on her feet. Of course, it would take time to find a job with a good salary. We need to save up for your safety cushion and also for renting your own place. You'll have your own shelf in the fridge, added Olivia, but feel free to raid ours with an appetite. I know you from the university dorm, Olivia winked at her friend. You're not one to devour everything along with the dishes. Use the washing machine, of course. In general, make yourself at home, Reggie said from the corridor. Thank you, Eva said, warming her hands on a cup of coffee that Olivia brewed, encased with cream and spices. I don't know how to thank you. If it turns out that you settle your life well, Reggie called from the corridor, that will be enough. It'll be a good deed in our karma. After breakfast, Eva went to her room and slept almost until the evening. Her body demanded rest after a day of wakefulness, generously seasoned with the nightmare of family experiences. In the evening, Eva had dinner later than everyone else in the family. She didn't want to wake up Olivia and went back to sleep. On the next day, she began to take care of her future. First and foremost, Eva blocked her husband's number. Of course, he could call from a different phone, but this small detail in the mega plan named Building a New Life seemed strangely important. Then she bought a new number to safely receive any calls. After that, Eva sent her resume to a couple of dozen companies, hoping that job offers would start pouring in soon. However, time passed, and she wasn't even invited for interviews. Eva called Odin, but he said he couldn't offer anything more than her previous part-time job. Unfortunately, the laptop she used belonged to Leo. Even though there were some small savings she brought with her, Eva realized she needed to find a job urgently. It didn't matter which one, just enough to buy the simplest laptop, even a used one. Plus, according to the weather forecast, the day when winter boots would be needed was just around the corner. Olivia was a tactful friend, not prying into her soul, not imposing with communication. She introduced Eva to her 6-year-old son, Stan. Meanwhile, 2 weeks had passed since Eva left her husband. One person from the circle of friends of the broken family, whom Eva called to find out some details about what was happening, informed her that Leo had moved Monica into their apartment. I don't care, Eva replied, and was surprised to realize that she genuinely didn't care. It even scared her. Did she really love Leo so lightly if she could forget him so easily? However, her deep self-analysis was distracted by a strange advertisement she saw and was looking for a cleaner every day, but for only a few hours, with such a high salary that it was hard to believe. Eva dialed the phone number. Hello, I'm calling about the advertisement. Yes, you need a cleaner. Is the vacancy still open? Good. Can you tell me if there's a mistake in the salary? No, the girl on the other end of the line replied, as the boss told me to specify, so we said it. Why so much if it's not a secret? What's the catch? No catch, the girl responded, even sounding offended. It's just our company's policy that everyone's work is important and should be fairly compensated. Besides, the cleaner will only be responsible for the boss's office, so we're looking for a special person, neatness, absence of bad habits, punctuality. Understood? Eva sighed, and although she didn't blossom with hope, she shared the main details about herself, good education, no bad habits, and that she was meticulous. However, she hadn't worked anywhere in the last few years, except as a housewife. Could you come for an interview tomorrow at 12? We are located at. For such an occasion, Eva wore the most official attire she could find in the small wardrobe, a gray wool blazer with classic jeans and autumn black boots. She looked reasonably good. You look great, Olivia complimented, seeing her friend. She peeked out from the kitchen to close the door behind Eva while herself making lunch. Why aren't you wearing makeup? It's just a cleaner position. Why wear makeup? You're working as a cleaner? Olivia was astonished. Well, they pay really well, just cleaning the boss's office. I want to work in my field, but no one's hiring me for that yet. Oh, life, Olivia shook her head. You should have at least taken some lipstick. Will you take it from me? Thank you, but better without anything, Eva said. Besides, they probably won't hire me anyway. You know, it feels like life is against me, against starting everything anew. In my house, I'll ask you to leave out the pessimistic mood, Olivia warned her with a smile, pointing her finger at her. The interview went quickly and standardly, and to Eva's surprise, they immediately told her that she was accepted and she could start working right away. To mark this occasion, Olivia opened a jar of apricot jam with oranges and cinnamon in the evening, which she had kept sealed since summer. It was the first night when Eva slept without any dreams and rested well. The first working day went smoothly. In the following days, everything continued in its usual order. Eva arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning and left at 11 o'clock. It turned out that the director, Bruno Wilson, didn't show up in the office before this time. Then, a catastrophe happened. It so happened that Eva opened the door, holding a cart with, among other things, a bucket of dirty water. With one hand, she was just coming out of the manager's office into the reception, where for some reason, the secretary was absent at that moment. The door swung open from the other side in such a way that it hit Eva on the head. Eva recoiled, and following her, a man stumbled over her cart. The bucket overturned, he almost fell, but with a fluid motion, he skillfully maintained balance and even caught Eva, who was also about to fall. It seemed to her that her heart had stopped. She froze, finding herself pressed against his broad, muscular chest. The stranger's hand held her around the waist in an extremely personal way. "Please let go," and he let go. He did it gently and smirked. Eva snorted and lifted her chin. "What do you think you're doing?" "I didn't let you fall," the man said and raised an eyebrow. The stranger's voice was deep and velvety. He was about 2 meters tall, his face was around 50, and a white-pink scar crossed it from top to bottom through the left side. It was easy to understand that this person had narrowly escaped losing an eye. The scar ran along the outer corner of his face. The stranger had black, short-cropped hair with gray on the temples. He looked strangely dressed for such a place. Only a mushroom picker or a summer resident could dress like that. He smelled like the forest, bonfire, and something else. A silly association came to Eva. He smelled like a predator. What nonsense. Probably just his perfume. Although, who would be so foolish as to wear perfume when going to the woods? "Stop. Where are you going?" Eva blocked his way when he took a step toward the door to the manager's office. The stranger looked at her somewhat strangely. "Just some business there." "Then why are you?" Eva put her hands on her hips. "If it's about Bruno Wilson, I think you should make an appointment first. The secretary seems to have disappeared somewhere, and you instead." He smirked, and the woman took this smirk as a personal offense. "Just because I'm a cleaner doesn't mean you can bypass me." "Who would doubt that?" He replied and gave her a curious look from top to bottom and back, then slowly walked away. "As you wander here, they'll fire me later for letting all sorts of people in here." The stranger was about to say something, but at that moment, "Nah," the secretary entered the reception. "Bruno, we didn't expect you so early." Eva experienced the essence of two expressions, to open her mouth in astonishment and to wish to sink through the ground on the spot. This was her boss, this man who looked like an ordinary mushroom picker. It turns out she didn't let him into his own office. Oh, what will happen now? He will fire her for sure. She had just outlined where to spend her salary. She decided to buy a toy for Stan, wanted to thank the family of her friend for taking her in, even if with something. "How was the trip?" The secretary continued the conversation. "Great, exceeded all expectations," Bruno replied, then threw a meaningful look at the cleaner on his way to the office. Eva was waiting for the notice that she was fired, but it didn't come. The next day, she trembled as she went to work. She entered the office and was immediately intercepted by the head of security, Andy. "Don't hurry home from work today. Mr. Wilson ordered to tell you that he wants to talk to you." "He's in his office," Andy informed her. Eva nodded resignedly, lowering her head. She went to the elevator to go up to the 21st floor. Passing by the secretary's desk, she confirmed that she was expected. She knocked on the door. "Come in," Mr. Wilson allowed, and Eva entered, feeling like at least a lamb who came into the dragon's lair. "I wonder why he called me. Just to fire me? It's so simple, or does he want to personally deal with me? Although if you think about it, is the guilt so great? Well, I didn't recognize the boss. How could I know him in person? But who knows, these rich people, just because he pays well doesn't mean everything is fine. Seeing this man again, she barely recognized him. A dark blue business suit, a white shirt, and a black tie. All of this gave a completely different tone to his image. Now he seemed really like who he was, a successful businessman, the owner of one of the largest enterprises producing packaging for food products. When the woman entered, he stood up from the table, leaving many papers scattered, and smiled. And he did it so easily and brightly that Eva involuntarily smiled in return. "I'm afraid I behaved terribly at our last meeting." Approaching, he extended his hand for a handshake. "No, not at all. I just didn't recognize you," Eva answered, taking the offered hand, somewhat embarrassed. "My mistake. Usually, I personally get acquainted with the staff, but this time I broke my own rule, too immersed in business." At the last words, a dark shadow passed over his face. "Something happened?" she asked. "Are you asking out of politeness?" He gave her a sharp look. Eva pondered her own reaction. "No," she shook her head, "just because you're a businessman and a millionaire doesn't mean everything in your life should be fine. Everyone can have problems. I just know from my own experience how important it is when someone shows interest." He looked at her intently again, but somehow differently, more inquisitively. "Thank you. Actually, yes, something happened, but these are trifles. What's more important is how you were received at work. You see, usually even the smallest position before being filled is clarified with me to make sure it was done correctly. But you were hired quickly, bypassing me, so to speak. Are you saying I'm not suitable as a cleaner?" Eva's insight was sharp. He smirked and returned to the table, leaning over the papers. "Excuse me," Eva said, a fleeting sympathy for this man, of course, did not mean that she was ready to let herself be humiliated. On the contrary, since her divorce, she began to feel much stronger, more confident than before. "I didn't know that special skills are needed to mop the floors. In that case, I will write a resignation letter right away. I hope you will pay my salary for the days worked." She listened to the speech with a horribly, simply unbearably, irritating half-smile on her face. "Actually, I was going to explain that instead of a janitorial position, with your education, you should have been offered something else," he said. "Oh," said Eva, "really?" "Yes, how about a little promotion and the position of my personal assistant?" "What?" What was said had no connection to reality according to Eva. "My assistant? But no, I don't understand." "Explain." "Sure," he nodded. "You have a decent education, and I've read the articles you've edited. They were easy to find. Your friend Mr. Clark posted your information on the website in the section of those whom the company is especially grateful to for supporting the release of materials. You have a good lifestyle. My security service didn't find anything to object to in your biography, so why not? Well, isn't a person familiar with the specifics of the business needed for this position? Someone with a different education, experience? Sorry, but I don't understand." "And what I don't understand scares me," Eva honestly replied. "But here, dear, I'm afraid you won't understand me. I make certain decisions just because I want to and can do so. The only thing you need to know about my offer is this." He handed her printed papers. "Your future salary, bonuses, schedule, nuances of duties are indicated here. Review it without haste. You can send the offer to my email, which is also indicated. I'll send the responses promptly, and tomorrow you'll give an answer," he said, and sat in a massive black leather chair, apparently returning to work. "You are free for today." Eva stood there, and several feelings fought within her: indignation that he was so assertive, fear that there was something wrong with this offer, and an inappropriate but quite silly joy that she was doubly lucky with the job. "Goodbye," said Eva, and left the office and the building's office. On her way home, Eva took out the papers in the tram. It was still very curious. She quickly glanced through them. Oh, and Mr. Wilson turned out to be a generous person. But he also wanted to burden me with many responsibilities. And among them, there was not a word about work for a philologist. But there was something else. The personal assistant was prescribed to be ready to speak with the manager by phone or in person at any time of the day. Also, there was a need to be ready for business trips within the country and abroad, and to perform various minor assignments. In general, nothing was clear. Almost missing her stop, Eva put the papers in her bag. Nonsense. No, she doesn't understand what's going on in the rich man's head, and she doesn't want to understand. After all, there will be another job, and it's better not to get involved with strange personalities. On her way home, Eva grabbed a box of eclairs with berry cream to treat Olivia's hospitable family. She opened the door and naturally went to the kitchen. Oh, hello Eva, almost dropped the sweets because at the table, having tea with her friend's husband, was the same young man from the car who had given her a ride, Carl. "What are you doing here?" exclaimed Eva. "Are you acquainted?" Olivia, who entered after her, asked. "The world is small," Reggie nodded. "Carl, my old friend, just came to chat, tell how he lives." "What are you doing here? Are you following me?" Eva pretended to be angry with the guy. "Me? No, of course not. Why would I?" "Just a coincidence," Carl replied, and for some reason, Eva wanted to believe him. "What's going on with you?" Olivia demanded. "Tell. There are no secrets in my house." She thumped her foot on the floor in a hippopotamus-shaped slipper in a demanding manner. Eva had to tell Carl in more detail about how she got into a car on the way and how she was driven and also frightened to the point where she almost went crazy. "Carl, I'll call your master," Reggie suddenly laughed and pretended to reach for the phone. "No, don't," pleaded the guy, and although he was genuinely scared, he still looked so funny like a mischievous child. "We haven't done that anymore." "Well, are you my friend or what?" "Come on, I'm just kidding," Reggie said, carefully and slowly putting the phone aside on the table, hiding it behind a vase of cookies. "Really, Carl," sighed Olivia. "You were pulled out of such a swamp with the brothers, and you're trying to pull off something? You'll get yourself into trouble, boy." "Oh, come on," the guy waved it off. "They scared me. I told you the last time was enough since Bruno called me to his office and scolded me so much that sparks were flying from his eyes. We've been behaving decently. Can someone explain to me what is happening at all?" Eva shrugged her hands. "Sit down," Reggie nodded. "You won't figure it out without a couple of cups of strong black tea. Wife, give us a pie, please, to celebrate the continuation of the conversation. You glutton." Olivia said good-naturedly and reached into the cupboard for a strawberry pie and sour cream sauce. So it happened that instead of idle chatter with an old friend, Carl had to tell the already well-known story to this family. He, Michael, and Larry were brothers. Only the latter was adopted at the age of 4. They lived in a village, and everything was fine until the mother died of cancer. From grief, their father became addicted to alcohol. The grown-up boys, Larry 20 years old, Carl 19 years old, and Michael 18 years old, decided to move to the city, study, and work, but there was not enough money. With the scholarship, of course, they were looking for any options to make money. And one day in the fall, they gathered in the forest. After all, if you gather good white mushrooms, you can sell them at the market for big money. They walked through the forest and suddenly found a person. The poor guy was lying unconscious and wounded. They decided to pull him out of the forest, and as the phone caught a signal, they called the doctors. It turned out that the man was not an ordinary person. And, believing in fate, he said that he wants to thank the guys for meeting them not by chance and invited them to work for him. But at the same time, by the way, he insisted that the guys continue their studies, not only in college, but wherever they wanted. But Carl stayed to study in the same place. He liked working with various complex industrial mechanisms, and only when he finished college, he realized that he also likes working with wood. Larry, on the other hand, wanted to be a car mechanic, and Michael decided that he would become an airplane pilot in the future, but for now, he also worked with cars. It was 5 years ago, and since then, the guys managed to learn and get into their patron's business. Together, all 3 brothers work and earn a lot of money. It turned out that Olivia already knew this story in general terms. Her husband became friends with the brothers when they had just arrived in the city, worked together as delivery couriers. But the brothers left because the flexible schedule for studying was not allowed by the management, and the friendship with Reggie remained. Eva listened to the story attentively, and she had the impression that it was fantasy. Can such things really happen in life? Although maybe they can. Why did you scare me in the taxi? She decided to clarify the weirdest and most incomprehensible thing for her. Well, this is where the most interesting part begins, Reggie smiled. Tell everything, Carl, just don't laugh, okay? He turned to Eva, and she nodded. Now is not the time for laughter. It turned out that the man who took the young people under his wing was not just a businessman and philanthropist, but also descended from an ancient noble family which had a legend that someone among their distant ancestors was a werewolf. Or their patron looked like a werewolf. Here the legend got tangled, but it turned out that the owner jokingly called them his faithful wolves a couple of times, and they decided it would be cool. So they decided that occasionally, if the task was appropriate, they could pretend to be werewolves, wear fake fangs, put on contact lenses. Very cute, Olivia gasped. How can you do that and live to a ripe old age and engage in such antics? What if you scared someone to a heart attack? You didn't play enough in childhood, did you? Reggie winked at his friend. And for what reasons do you scare people? Eva couldn't connect the fact that her best friend and her husband had such strange friends, and how to finally relate to Carl and his brothers. She hadn't decided yet. What kind of people are they, anyway? Clearly with some big quirks, Carl intervened. Well, once we went to talk to a director, Carl stared at the sugar bowl. He was diverting funds from the company through the accounting department. We told him that there would be trouble if he didn't return it. And would there have been these troubles? Eva tensed. No, the guy shook his head. We just scared him a little. It was just a bluff. Huh, sighed Eva. By the way, what were you talking about? The girls from the club? Girls' club, Reggie perked up, and his wife pinched him lightly on the shoulder for it. Yes, it happened. We just like to ride around the city in this image sometimes. We would give a lift to some lady but also scared her a bit, as if giving her a warning that we are good guys and she could have ended up in trouble with other guys. Nonsense, Eva honestly said. Does your boss know about this? Oh, he wouldn't like this idea. He ordered not to scare hooligans too much. If we meet them in such a form, he says we shouldn't look for trouble. He takes care of us too much sometimes, Carl explained. Your heads are young and foolish for now, Olivia summed up. I know, Carl nodded. We try not to upset Mr. Wilson. Why? What did you say his name was? Eva jumped up. Bruno Wilson, Carl replied. But the man I work for, the woman was surprised. I came to his office as a janitor, and I've never seen the boss. Yesterday, I mistook him for a random visitor and almost chased him out with a broom. And he, so friend. Olivia waved her hands. Tell everything quickly, and Eva told the story that happened to her. Really? A strange offer, Olivia supported her in her concerns. Not strange, Carl intervened. He just knows about you, that you left your husband. Larry went to his office, and he saw you from a distance. You didn't notice him, but he told the boss yesterday that you are the woman we took from your husband. Bruno probably decided that it's some kind of fate sign. He generally believes in all this. So, part of the accusations regarding us being dressed as werewolves should be taken off. It's all the indirect influence of the boss. He is a fan of mystical moods. Eva sat with rounded eyes, not knowing what to say, but she knew how to feel about all this strictly negatively. And in general, it turns out she was set up. I quit, why? Carl asked. The fact that you came to work there at all was a coincidence, I swear. And I didn't know that you live here. We just returned from out of town yesterday, checked our shelter, and Reggie told me the story of this person settling in. Eva gave a sideways glance at Reggie. He doesn't mean that he's dissatisfied with living next to you, Carl defended his friend. He just shared the news that a familiar element of society fell apart. And about work, you should think about it. Do you think these are just random coincidences that you came to this place for a vacancy just because the salary was unusually high for a janitor? Eva said. And not just like that in life, the previous janitor resigned. Carl insisted. She decided to settle at home, take care of her grandchildren. They just posted the announcement, and you came. And it's also such a coincidence that you came to Reggie and Olivia, and I turned out to be their friend. It turns out signs of fate are all around, but you are blind to them. My head hurts from you, honestly, Eva said, and got up from the table. I'll go. I really need to think about what to do with my life. That night, Eva hardly slept. She pondered over everything that had happened to her, and only in the early morning, when the sun tinted the horizon in a milky pink hue, did she fall asleep. She slept peacefully and easily because she had made a final decision and firmly promised herself that, regardless of the consequences, she would not regret it. Exactly 7 years later, to be precise, 7 years and 1 day later, on a sunny clear day that didn't quite match the winter season, Leo walked slowly through the city in a very gloomy mood. And there were plenty of reasons for that. Firstly, Monica completely lost it, and as it turned out, she accumulated a bunch of debts. Leo told her that she needed to live within their means, but one day she withdrew the saved money for a rainy day and spent it on plastic surgery for herself. She claimed she didn't like her nose. Leo, however, thought that it didn't matter what shape her nose was if a woman stuck it everywhere it shouldn't be. He lost his job a long time ago, 2 years ago, and now he constantly took on odd jobs, searching for a similar position. And Monica always reproached him for not having money. Their son supposedly was living poorly, but how much does a child need? Leo asked. There's soup and bread at home, and the rest, sorry, are just whims. Leo didn't like the way Monica raised their son, Nolan, but there was nothing he could do. One thing is to kick out the first wife who turned out to be an airhead, another thing is the mother of his son. Divorce was not an option, he would have to pay alimony, but at least this way he could control her so she wouldn't spend money on herself. The second reason for Leo's dissatisfaction was that at this time of year, he always started thinking about Eva. After all, there was something good about her. She cooked deliciously. Monica couldn't do anything more complicated than boil store-bought dumplings. Eva maintained cleanliness in the house while Monica created mess. Eva knew how to listen, while Monica just chattered endlessly, and for everything, absolutely everything, she found a reason for a scandal. Leo understood, as if he himself had expelled her, but still thought that Eva didn't love him, otherwise, she could have tried to come back. But she changed her phone number, and he couldn't reach her. He searched for her through acquaintances, and in the end, only found out that she lived with Olivia for some time, and then moved out. When he came to talk to Olivia about his legal wife, she laughed in his face and scolded him. Olivia's husband even threatened to push him down the stairs. Psychos, thought Leo. Leo stopped at a pedestrian crossing, waiting for the green light. His attention was drawn to a red sports car parked on the side. Leo didn't like the rich and grimaced at the thought that he was suffering, and someone was living a luxurious life. From the driver's side came a muscular man in a black leather jacket who walked around the car and opened the front passenger door. He extended his hand, accepting it, and a woman got out of the car. At first glance, people might say about such a woman's luxurious, a blonde with shoulder-length curls and a red suit, a tight skirt, and a jacket with a beige coat draped over her shoulders, specifically draped over her shoulders with her arms not in the sleeves, high heels, with a lot of gold jewelry. Leo had only seen such beauties on the internet, in movies, and here she was standing just a step away from him. Unconsciously, he stared at her, almost drooling, and then when the woman turned, he suddenly recognized her. Eva, she looked at him. Yes, it was her, changed beyond recognition. Where did that gray mouse his wife disappear to? This well-groomed woman with a straight posture, could she be the same Eva, his modest Eva who never chose red-colored clothes? His Eva, who always walked bent, bowed her head as if guilty before the whole world. But there was no doubt, she stood before him. "Hello," she said, but as if to a stranger, and it unpleasantly struck Leo. What is happening at all? Why is his wife in a luxury car? Who is the guy next to her? Did she pick up a rich man who could need Eva at all? Leo just kept her at home out of pity. Well, she was just a convenient woman for him that couldn't be denied. Leo had thought more than once that he needed to keep his irritation towards his wife in check and pretend that Monica didn't offend him, then he could have lived in two houses. "And what many guys practice that where have you been?" Leo asked, intentionally putting a strict tone in his voice, as if she had found a lover for herself. The blonde in red smirked, casting a glance at the man opposite her. She assessed her ex-husband's life: untidy and dirty clothes, a face with swelling, gained around 10 kilograms, and some balding. "We've parted ways," the simple girl replied. "I called you," he said. "It wasn't necessary," she corrected, adjusting the coat on her shoulders and playing with her locks disturbed by a sudden gust of wind. "You said and did enough to put an end to our relationship. We divorced legally, as it should be. I didn't claim any of your belongings. We have no common children, so we are strangers now. Goodbye," she said, turning to enter the building of a shopping center. "I have a son now," Leo shouted after her. His former Eva would never allow such a tone. "You couldn't give birth, your sister did." "I'm living well, and you clearly not," he retorted. Leo put his hands in his jacket pockets, feeling the holes with his fingers. He couldn't find time to mend them, and Monica, of course, ignored his request to do so. Yesterday, she even scolded him, claiming she's not a maid and regretting marrying him. She became a domestic hen. Apparently, she found someone else again. He wanted to say more, but the muscular guy accompanying Eva moved towards him. However, Eva stopped him. "Larry, don't bother. It's not worth it. Let him go, we have things to do." The brawny guy gave Leo a disdainful look, smirked, showing his teeth. "I agree with you, Eva. Why waste our time on trash? We are business people." Leo's mouth dropped open at what he heard. What did they just call him? By the way, some young girls with coffee cups in hand were sitting on a bench nearby, observing the whole dialogue and now whispering and giggling. Red patches appeared on Leo's face. He didn't see it, but he felt the burning sensation, grinding his teeth. Leo marched towards the public transport stop. His mood was thoroughly spoiled. Eva just wanted to relax a bit, distract herself from worries, engaging in a well-known therapy for women's shopping. Spoil herself with something new for autumn, perhaps a handbag. But most importantly, she needed to pick gifts for Olivia and Reggie's anniversary, which coincidentally fell on their son's birthday. The boy had been dreaming of a space-themed construction set for a long time, and Eva decided to buy him the latest one, a set with a lunar space station and another one with UFOs and aliens. The encounter with her ex-husband wasn't a blow, but it certainly clouded her day. It seemed like the past was behind them. Eva continued to live in the city in her new life, but she had never crossed paths with Leo before. 7 years ago, she had accepted Mr. Wilson's strange offer to become his personal assistant, anticipating unpleasantness with that decision. However, her boss turned out to be a decent man, not a capricious rich guy, but unexpectedly simple and interesting. At first, Eva had simple duties: fetching his favorite drink from the coffee shop, passing instructions to the secretary, sorting mail, and composing polite and beautiful refusals to invitations like private parties. Later, her responsibilities expanded and became more interesting. It turned out that Bruno had bought a large piece of land years ago, planted a forest there, and established a private sanctuary for nursing wild animals and birds. Once they recovered, they were released back into their natural habitat. However, some, like an orphaned fawn whose mother was killed by poachers, remained in the sanctuary permanently, unable to survive in the wild. For a while, Eva was responsible for selecting the best suppliers of food for the shelter's residents. Bruno also assigned her to write an article about him for an environmental protection magazine. After that, many people started donating money to the sanctuary. Initially, Eva couldn't understand why. She thought Bruno was wealthy enough to support the entire sanctuary on his own. But it turned out he spent money not only on the sanctuary but also on various environmental conservation programs, such as Amazon rainforest preservation, reforestation on the Sahara Desert's border, and a shark protection project near Indonesia, where sharks were hunted for their precious fins. He also supported many other animal shelters. "We never say that things are bad for us, we manage," commented her boss. "But if people want to help, why deprive them of the opportunity to contribute to nature conservation? As for the surplus budget, we redirect the funds to foundations that need help. For example, this one," and he handed Eva a brochure. In the background, horses grazed on the farm, rescued from private riding clubs where they were mistreated. "By the way, write an article about them. I will provide you with the contact details of the head of the foundation. The project is young, but the guys work with passion." Over time, Eva realized that she enjoyed her job. She delved more into Bruno's affairs and even didn't hesitate to express her opinion on some matters. She got to know this man better, and he was lonely as a child of an orphanage. He entered business right after school, facing bankruptcy 4 times before finally learning all the lessons of fate and standing firmly on his feet. It also became clear that Bruno was lonely. He devoted all his energy to work, his projects, and almost all his free time was spent in nature. He was alone, yet he had a wife and a daughter. He divorced his wife long ago, and she lived in Switzerland. His daughter, at the age of 16, chose to attend a private school in another city because her mother claimed that there was no need to communicate much with her father. According to her, he loved his work and animals more than people, living and dear ones. Eva learned all this not from her boss. He never volunteered such personal information. Larry, his confidant, shared all these details, including the boss's secret. Bruno's true love was a poetess. They met when they were very young, but what could he offer to a girl from a decent family? She married someone else. It seemed like they became friends over time. He wrote her prose letters, and she responded with poems. That's the strange couple, Larry concluded the story. With such a strange life. Eva once tried to talk to Bruno about all this. It was the first and last time her boss spoke to her sternly, almost angrily. "This, Eva, is none of your business, and you will never bring this up with me again." Agreed? Eva felt strangely then. It hurt. She apologized, promised that such a thing would not happen again, and she kept her word. But overall, there were more positives in her relationship with her boss. Over the years, Eva not only remained his personal assistant without deputies, but also received exciting opportunities. It happened about a year after she accepted his offer. Bruno said she should think about her future. He proposed to educate her on choosing reliable investment portfolios for passive income. He insisted that she enroll in university and obtain a higher education in economics. Eva resisted a university at her age. Everyone would laugh. Why bother? But Bruno was adamant. He said it would make her more useful to him, and later, if she wished, she could start her own business. To make her study easier, she enrolled in a correspondence course, and Bruno relieved her of some of her duties. Although Eva sometimes expressed dissatisfaction, thinking it was silly, she burst into tears upon receiving her diploma because she understood, indeed, now she could change many things in her life. She had already paid off her mortgage with her salary and decided to open a small business, a shop for high-quality tableware. Bruno didn't guide her in this venture, but he did support her. He introduced her shop to his acquaintances, creating a customer base that kept her busy importing goods. The changes also affected Eva's appearance. She suddenly realized that she wanted to become different, and as if to definitively cast off the past, she realized that bright colors and figure-hugging clothes suited her. She enjoyed dressing up, emphasizing her femininity. In summary, after these years, her life resembled a fairy tale, a dream, the ending of a Hollywood melodrama. The only thing missing was love. Eva felt that her heart had died after Leo. There were men around her, quite worthy ones. She even tried going on dates, but quickly ended budding romances, considering it unfair to allow herself to be loved when she couldn't give anything in return. The three brothers who initially scared her were still present in her life. However, she saw Carl the least frequently. 3 years ago, he found the love of his life, built a house for his young family, and lived quietly with a small farm. Michael, as he had dreamed, became a pilot and worked for a tourism company, showcasing the world's beauty from the air. Only Larry remained with Mr. Wilson, rising through the ranks to become the head of his security service. Moreover, over the years, Larry became Eva's closest friend. It was a special connection. She perceived him as a younger brother, trusting him with doubts, fears, and secrets. So now, when they entered the shopping center, she led him to the nearest cafe and shared the difficulties of her encounter with her ex-husband. "Do you feel anything for him?" Larry asked. "No," Eva shook her head. "Rather, I can't understand my former self. He treated me, now I realize, he manipulated me as he pleased." "Okay, you need to let go of the past," Larry sighed. "Easy for you to say. Maybe I should talk to him about what?" "No, Eva, I'd rather put you on a leash than let you make such a foolish move." "Your ex?" Larry, looked into her eyes attentively. "You should never meet him alone, you understand? There's something sinister about him. I can sense it." "You're like a wolf," Eva smirked. "I promise I won't do anything foolish." On the way back, Eva asked to be dropped off earlier. She wanted to walk home in such good weather. "See you tomorrow," Larry waved goodbye. Eva, half-jokingly, blew him an air kiss. The leisurely stroll along the alley, where sparrows chirped on branches with rare unshed leaves, helped her return to her usual state of mind. Everything is fine, everything is under control, everything will be fine. A couple of weeks after the unexpected and unwanted encounter, the first snowfall occurred, fluffy, clingy snow. It seemed, despite the forecasts, it had no intention of melting. Leo stepped out of the entrance in high spirits. An old friend, Cedric, had called him. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, mainly because Cedric had been in prison. Now, having been released, he sought old friends. And Leo, 10 or even fewer years ago, would have kept away from such a friend, but everything in life changed. What seemed unthinkable yesterday, figuratively speaking, seemed quite acceptable today, he reasoned. Life goes on, so why be afraid? It won't get worse, but if you're not a coward, if you take risks, things might get much better. Cedric immediately warned that a serious and lucrative deal was coming up. They needed a person with steady hands. Leo, without knowing the details, walked through many streets and finally stopped at the house with the most rundown appearance. He sighed heavily and turned off his phone to avoid being distracted by his wife. He entered the building. Cedric lived on the ground floor, and Leo knocked on the door. "So, you finally came," Cedric slapped him on the shoulder. "Come in." Leo immediately understood that things were not going well for his old school friend. The friend's apartment needed a major overhaul, and it was frightening to look at the dirty, broken dishes on the kitchen table. Still, Leo sat down, and the conversation began. "I've never done this in my life," Leo shrugged. "What use am I?" "Nothing complicated, you'll figure it out as we go. I'll help you. You just can't handle it alone, understand?" Leo frowned. He had no idea that Cedric would suggest such a thing, go into the woods and hunt a deer, a male with magnificent antlers, for which an anonymous buyer was willing to pay a substantial amount. When asked why the buyer himself wouldn't go hunting, Cedric explained that was the main problem. The deer was in the forest, but it wasn't an ordinary forest. It was artificial, created on private land, and belonged to a foundation for the protection of forest animals, headed by a businessman who obviously had nowhere else to spend his money. This particular deer supposedly escaped from a regular forest when poachers attacked, and among them was our client. So, getting the antlers of the Forest King was a matter of honor for him, and they promised so much money for this task that Leo began to doubt if he should decline. When Leo finally asked, and Cedric grinned, realizing he had found a willing accomplice. Eva stood in the boss's office and couldn't understand what was happening. How could he cancel all the meetings and even write a decline for the invitation to the art gallery opening, especially when she had already agreed? I just burned out, got tired, Bruno honestly admitted, and today, I looked out of the window, saw the snow, and thought, what am I doing? Life is passing by, and I'm all about work, forgot completely that there's more to life. So, it's decided, we're canceling everything. And for you too, cancel whatever you had planned. But I didn't have anything planned. Then get ready, we're going to my forest today. Date this weekend. Larry will pick you up at 7 a.m. I'll get there myself. Have you ever tried skiing? What skiing, Bruno? I haven't agreed yet. Are there any valid reasons to refuse? He interrupted again. No, but it's just so unexpected. You've adopted my bad habit of working too much. Just a couple of days off, trust me, as someone with experience, it will be worth it. Your mind will feel refreshed. Lost in thought, Eva tapped her cherry manicured nails on the folders of documents pressed to her chest. In some ways, the boss was right. Lately, she didn't even rest on planned weekends. There were always tasks that needed to be delegated. And if there were none, it seemed unbearable to sit in front of the TV, and no TV series could capture her interest. Perhaps this was indeed burnout. Moreover, winter had just begun, and the forest must be magical at this time. Besides, she could see interesting animals, which, of course, beats an ordinary zoo. She had been there before and had even managed to make friends with some of the animals. Okay, I'll keep you company, Eva agreed. You know, that's a great idea, Olivia supported her friend. When Eva came to visit, they had already celebrated the anniversary. The gifts for the family of their best friends were well received. Eva prepared a vintage pen set from the early 20th century with a malachite stand and a working ink pen for Reggie. And for her friend, a luxurious set of cosmetics from a luxury brand with the scent of apple and lilies, which she had long dreamed of. Stan was thrilled with the construction set and boldly declared that he would definitely become an astronaut when he grew up, although a year ago he dreamed of becoming a veterinarian, and even before that, a circus artist, a chef, a parent. Apparently, he had a hard time determining his future, Eva observed. Yeah, I need a break, Eva agreed, starting to eat the blueberry pie. It was Olivia's new recipe. But I'm talking about something else, Olivia said meaningfully. I'm talking about Bruno. You know, we have nothing between us, Eva rolled her eyes. He's my boss and, well, a mentor. And he already has an ex-wife and a lover. He can't be with. Okay, I'm kidding, Olivia waved her hands. She sat down at the table and also began to eat her pie. But Larry, he's not married yet, right? Olivia pressed. No, things just haven't worked out. He's also a friend to you, the best one, Eva replied. And are you aware that sometimes the best friends of men turn into the best husbands? Olivia continued. Eva shrugged. She herself sometimes thought of Larry in that light, but dismissed such thoughts because it was easy to ruin a friendship with that mindset. Better to leave everything as it is. After all, if he wanted to make the first move, he would have done it a long time ago, at least when she went on dates with others. And since he hasn't, then with Larry, they are just friends. Finally, on the appointed day, Larry picked her up. They set off early in the morning on empty roads. And as soon as they left the outskirts of the city, the fresh, intoxicating, clean air rushed through the slightly opened window, making Eva dizzy. 6 hours on the road, with several stops at roadside cafes. Eva was wary of small roadside establishments, but Larry, who often went to the Foundation's reserves, knew the best ones. So, hungry and without hot tea or coffee, Eva was not left wanting. Forest House was located on a very spacious territory, and if you were to look at it from a bird's eye view, it would be hard to believe that just over 20 years ago, it was a clean field. However, generous investments in nature and support from relevant specialists did their job. Mr. Wilson's possessions eventually began to truly resemble a real forest. Part of it was thinned out and improved. Here were the foundation offices, residential buildings for employees, as well as enclosures for animals. But what lay beyond intentionally remained in its wild state. If you were to exit this forest from the North Cross, a wide field and a shallow river, you would find yourself in a real forest that had been here for at least 300 years, Larry explained. Another world, exclaimed Eva with enthusiasm when the car entered the tall gates of the forest house. This forest was not fenced with any high fence, but there were gates with artificial forging depicting animals and a small fence simply indicating the boundary of private property to random passers-by. Larry explained that in photos and videos, this place looked more impressive. Moreover, it served as a psychological factor for the employees. Larry was about to start unloading the luggage when Paulina, a young employee, ran up to him. The tearful girl shared her distress. Their wolf named Rocky had escaped from his enclosure. Somehow, he had managed to open the enclosure at night. Rocky was a young wolf maltreated by fate. Bruno's foundation rescued him from a wandering circus. The plan was for him to spend his whole life among people because he didn't know his own kind and couldn't live with them. Eva knew Rocky's character. He was more like a dog, and the staff veterinarian concluded that in his ancestors there were indeed domestic dogs. He said that this, combined with his circus past, explained why the beast leaned so much towards humans. Despite the possibility of a bite if frightened, Rocky's soul was more filled with goodness than malice. And for some reason, Eva had taken a liking to this wolf during her visits to the forest house, especially in a way that made other employees even jealous of Rocky. Wait a minute, didn't they have to put a tracker on the wolf? Larry frowned. He hasn't gotten used to the collar yet. He hates it after the circus captivity, explained Paulina. All right, let him go, said Larry. And you go to the house, he addressed Eva. Rocky is still a wolf, and he might get agitated in the wild. Eva didn't like being made out to be a useless, helpless woman. But knowing Larry's stubborn and sometimes annoying care, she agreed outwardly. Eva watched the departing couple with her eyes unexpectedly heavy. Snow began to fall with large flakes swirling around. Returning to the car, Eva found a pack of smoked meat, a treat for the dogs, but Rocky also loved it, regardless of what Larry said. An extra person in this noble endeavor wouldn't hurt, especially if there's aromatic dried meat. With the last words, Larry handed Leo a gun. It's still bright now. Can't we wait until night? Leo asked. At night, we release the dogs to run around, replied Cedric. He wasn't really sure about dogs, he just had a childhood fear of the dark, but he didn't want to admit it. Leo trudged through the freshly fallen snow, beneath which, in some places, the mud and fallen leaves had not yet solidified, causing his feet to slip with every step. The further he went, the less he liked the idea because it seemed like his friend just wanted to reap all the benefits, and if anyone got caught, it would be Leo. The man suddenly doubted if he could even do it, destroy the beast with his own hands. Yes, they promised good money for the antlers, but it was supposed to be done by someone else. And now, he suddenly remembered watching a cartoon with his son, where a poor fawn was running away from some villains, and here he, Leo, was about to become such a villain. Suddenly, he jerked. In the pocket of his jacket, his phone rang, and he had forgotten to turn off the sound. He pulled it out with trembling fingers. It was Monica calling. He wanted to ignore it, but he thought that this call wasn't for nothing. Yeah, darling, I'm a bit busy here. What's up? Monica calmly, and even with a hint of a smile in her tone, informed him that she was leaving him. Right now, she was packing her things and their sons. You're not a man, she said, what she had long wanted to say. I married you, you promised me everything would be fine, and what happened? I've been living with you like a sister all this time. There's nothing in the house that's enough for me. I'm leaving. Wait, Leo panicked, you can't leave. We have a son, don't we? Oh, now you remember him, you lousy father. No, Monica paused for a moment. This is not your son. Leo stopped dead in his tracks. Yes, darling, you've been raising someone else's child all these years, Monica continued with evident enjoyment. He's from another man, and unlike you, he turned out to be a decent person. And he's taking us with the boy. Who is he? You don't know him, he's my classmate. He lives in the neighboring city now. He inherited an apartment, and he has another one, so we won't need anything. Now, that's it. I don't have time to talk to you. I'll leave the keys under the mat, and Monica hung up. The snow fell in a white misty veil that made it difficult to see anything beyond your own outstretched arm. Rocky, where are you, Rocky? Eva didn't know where she had wandered and wasn't afraid of getting lost. There wasn't much space here, she would come out somewhere. But still, it didn't feel right. The snowfall was intensifying very quickly, and it was getting colder. Leo, whom she had come out to find, behind the trees, didn't catch her words, he only heard her voice and recognized it. He was the first to see her, sharply turning around. Eva, when she saw him and stopped, then noticed the gun in his hands. The woman's eyes filled with horror. Eva, the man stepped towards her. She shook her head. There was nothing good about meeting her ex-husband where he had no business being, especially with a gun. She didn't even bother to think about what it all meant, she just screamed, driven by the instinct for self-preservation, and started running. Leo also looked at what he held in his hands, threw the gun down somewhere, it disappeared into the snow, and chased after her. Why, he didn't understand it himself, it just seemed important for some reason. He caught up with her, wanted to grab her by the shoulder, but awkwardly she dodged to the side, and they both fell down into the leaves mixed with snow pellets. Don't touch me. Let go. Eva resisted. Be quiet, you fool. Leo first tried to hold her, then she hit him in the face and scratched him with her nails. He rolled to the side and sat down. Calm down, why did you run away from me? And you, what are you doing here? And you had a gun. I can explain everything, but what are you doing here yourself? Obsession. When I was chasing you before, I wanted to explain everything, that I changed my mind about doing bad things, and also apologize for everything, but suddenly anger at my ex-wife overwhelmed him. Why does she always appear at the most inconvenient times? Eva replied, getting up and trying to shake off the dirt. What do you care about that? You're living with a millionaire, aren't you? Leo squinted unfriendly. Why living? I work for him, and I have been for a long time. Since you kicked me out, you left on your own. Leo clenched his teeth and stepped towards his ex-wife. What? You want me to tolerate your mistresses, with whom you cheated? Enough. I've wasted the best years on you, thank you. Kind people took me in, and then the kind uncle millionaire took you in, Leo sneered, leaning over her. And put you to bed, right? For a few moments, silence hung in the air. It seemed you could hear the rustling of snowflakes in the air, and then a ringing blow echoed through the forest. Scoundrel, Eva's palm hurt, and Leo's cheek was stinging. What else do you want? Tell me, you married a young one, she gave birth to your son, that's not my child, Leo replied helpfully. Monica just called, she's leaving me and our son, said, it's not mine. Eva opened her mouth, took a deep breath, what to say now? A mixture of triumph and pity choked her. And suddenly, a low growl came from behind the trees. Both people turned synchronously and met the yellow eyes of a wolf. You abandoned me, Leo whispered. If you loved me, you would have forgiven me, not left me. Suddenly, he tightly, firmly grabbed Eva by the shoulders, let the wolves eat you, scum, and he threw her hard to the side towards the beast. The woman just screamed and managed to raise her hands forward to soften the fall. Leo had no idea how to behave when meeting wolves, he just decided to run and had already gained good speed, but he was stopped by a sharp laugh. Eva behind him burst into laughter, and this is not the reaction you expect from a person you've thrown to a wolf. Leo turned around and stared at the scene in horror because Eva was patting the wolf on the withers and behind the ears, and he was whining, wagging his tail, and nudging her jacket with his nose. Good boy, smelled food, huh? In an instant, she pulled out a piece of dried meat from her pocket and gave it to the animal. Sharp fangs delicately caught the treat. Finally, Eva sat on the ground, then got up and started shaking herself off. "Oh, Leo, what an idiot you are," her look was eloquent. "Someone won't be forgiven now, Eva." "And how about you?" Leo nodded towards the wolf. "Why does he obey you?" In Leo's head, a downright superstitious horror was seeping through. He just forgot that he was on the territory of the Wildlife Aid Center, and theoretically, they could have tamed wolves here. Eva shrugged, then turned to Rocky. "My boy." The wolf dropped to the ground and crawled forward, baring its teeth and growling. In reality, it was one of those rare circus tricks that the wolf agreed to perform, but he never attacked humans afterward. He had to return to the person who gave him the command and then receive a well-deserved treat. However, Leo didn't know this and was very, very frightened, which he exclaimed and started running, but after just 10 steps, he fell with a groan because he twisted his leg. Eva, several people appeared from behind the trees: Larry, Bruno, Paulina, and some other employees. "We heard a commotion over there, checked all the animals, no one is missing. We were wondering how Rocky got out," Larry began to say, but stopped when he noticed the wolf, and then the person ahead. "Hey, are you okay?" He approached the injured person. "This is my ex-husband," said Eva, sitting next to the wolf and patting him behind the ear. "He came here to hunt," Paulina exclaimed in horror. "Everything is fine. He lost his gun, probably not dangerous now," Eva continued. "Are you okay?" she asked Bruno sympathetically. "Rocky, darling, it's time for dinner. Want some meat?" "Let's go, Leighton, let's go." Understanding that he would now be offered a treat elsewhere, the wolf willingly followed the girl and another Foundation employee. He had enough adventures for the day and couldn't wait to return to his warm, already familiar enclosure. "What happened? How did he get here?" Bruno continued questioning. "Everything is fine," Eva sighed. "I don't know. I was just looking for Rocky, and I found Leo. He was armed, and I'm afraid he wanted to do something terrible." "We'll figure it out," the boss said, becoming serious. Meanwhile, Larry helped Leo stand up, who could barely stand on his feet and showed no resistance. He was trembling, tears rolling down his cheeks. He suddenly realized how many wrong things he had done in his life. But could anything be fixed? "Tie him up," Larry asked when the boss passed on Eva's words. "I don't think this guy is capable of anything," Bruno chuckled. "But just in case, let's take him home together and then lock him in the pantry. Of course, we need to call someone to pick him up, and also we need to find out what he was doing here. Cedric is behind all this," Leo hurriedly defended himself. "It was his idea. Someone paid him. He wanted to kill a deer." "Oh, really?" Bruno smirked. "We'll deal with that too. But for now, let's go. It looks like a snowstorm is coming soon." There was no rest after what happened. Of course, Eva barely waited for the opportunity when all emotionally exhausting matters were settled, eagerly anticipating the moment to go back to the city. She slept almost the entire way. "Are we here?" She perked up when the car stopped. "Yes," Larry smiled from the driver's seat. And Eva, catching his gaze, remembered for some reason their first meeting when they locked eyes just like that, and she was terribly afraid because if someone had said then that this man would become her best, closest friend. "Don't think about what happened there, Bruno will handle it, and your ex-husband won't bother you anymore," he said. "I know," she sighed. "But I still feel sorry for him, even though he wanted to feed you to the wolf. Leo is a fool, always has been. But I feel sorry for him, even though I understand that I'm not right. Bruno will take into account that he's your ex-husband, maybe he'll get off easy. But your husband won't hurt you anymore." "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For always being there and for deciding to give me a ride 7 years ago. I can't imagine how I would live if I hadn't done that." "Larry, what?" "Maybe you'll come in for a tea visit," he chuckled. "Not exactly." Eva felt awkward and embarrassed, but she understood that she had to take this step for a date. Olivia taught me how to bake a new pie. I can make it for you. Isn't it too late to be baking pies? Larry said, as if he hadn't heard anything about a date. We can order something from a restaurant. Well, if you don't want to, Eva reached for the car door. I don't want a pie, so you don't tire yourself out after everything in the kitchen. But I do want a date with you. And no pie is needed. He turned around, not through the mirror, and their eyes met again. Then they got out of the car, holding hands, and walked across the yard to their home. Christmas was still far away, but twinkling lights were already hanging on the trees in this residential complex. A few months later, by the time the first leaves started appearing on the trees, Larry and Eva got married. It was a modest celebration for their closest friends and family, held at the Forest House. Tables were set up outdoors. Rocky, the wolf, wore a beautiful bow in honor of the occasion. Of course, Larry's brothers were at the wedding. Michael wished the couple all the best and gave a long farewell speech. Carl suggested creating a family crest for them, insisting that a wolf must be featured. Olivia, Reggie, and Stan were also invited. It was a cozy but unforgettable celebration for their nearest and dearest. On that day, Eva remembered making a wish on her 30th birthday to one day be happy, and she realized that it had finally come true. Thank you for joining us today on Deep Stories. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.